Hello, I've got my rulebook with me. I wanted to do a quick video focusing on the new stratagems, the universal stratagems that everyone can use all the time. In the previous edition there were 3, now there's 7. So what are they? Okay, so the 3 old stratagems from the previous edition are in here, but only one of them hasn't changed. The one that hasn't changed is the 2 CP counteroffensive. Use this stratagem after an enemy unit has fought in this turn. Select one of your own eligible units and fight with it next. So that's still in there. That's unchanged. It still costs 2 CP to interrupt a fight. Insane Bravery for 2 CP. Automatically pass a morale test. That's still in here as well, but you can only use this stratagem once per battle. So we're not going to see this stratagem as much. You're going to be able to use it once. Your opponent's going to be able to use it once. And then that's it. The morale phase has changed. However, morale isn't as brutal for bigger squads, but it'll come into effect more for smaller squads, for elite squads, perhaps. So I don't know if we're going to need to see Insane Bravery like we used to see it in previous editions. If you had a big squad of 30 guys and 15 of them got wiped out and you don't have a way of making them immune to morale, then there was a chance in 8th edition that you'd lose all the remaining 15 guys. Morale could be extremely brutal. Now, however, you lose 1 if you fail morale, and then you roll a d6 for all the remaining guys in the squad. If you fail morale, and on 1 you remove 1 of the remaining guys. So it's less likely that whole big squads are going to get wiped out due to a failure of your morale. So we might not see this one as much because morale isn't going to do that, and we definitely won't see this one as much because you can only use it once per battle. Command reroll is still in here, but they've tidied it up. Exactly when you can use it, what you can use it for. You can't use it for making sure your vehicle doesn't blow up again. You can't use it for using an apothecary to make sure a guy gets back up again. Those clutch moments where you really need your characters to get back up, where the explosion, those sorts of, they're gone. You can only use command rerolls now for hit, wound, damage, saving throw, advanced roll, charge roll, psychic test, deny the witch test. And when you've rolled the dice to determine the number of attacks made by a weapon. Hit roll, wound roll, damage roll, saving throw, advance, charge, psychic test, deny the witch test, number of shots for a weapon. Yeah. You can still use your command reroll, but perhaps those moments where you really need to use the command reroll, when your captain is the only character in a vehicle because you put him in there for safety because he's got 1 wound left and it blows up, and then you roll a 1 and he died, and you really need to make sure he doesn't die, you can't do that. He's gonna die. 4 new stratagems. Fire Overwatch. We know this one. They've leaked the crap out of it. Overwatch phase has gone. Instead, for 1 CP, you can fire Overwatch. I'm sure there'll be some stratagems and some more rules and some more units coming up in future codexes which allow other units to fire Overwatch. Or maybe in a datasheet, suddenly they'll give, I don't know, Unit X. This unit has the ability to fire Overwatch. I don't know. But I'm sure we'll see stuff like that. But firing Overwatch costs 1 CP, and you can select a unit to do it, remember, because each of these stratagems you can only use once per your battle round. You cannot use the same stratagem more than once in the same phase. Remember, this will now affect narrative because these are the rules. So in narrative games previously, you could use the same stratagem again and again. Now, you no longer can. It's in the core rules. Cut them down for 1 CP. Use this stratagem when an enemy unit falls back. Before any models in that unit are moved, roll 1d6 for each model in your army that's within engagement range of that enemy unit. For each result of a 6, the enemy suffers 1 mortal wound. So if you're in combat, you have to be in engagement range. The enemy decides to fall back. Roll a d6 for each model from your army in engagement range. If you've got 1 guy in your army and the enemy chooses to fall back, you're rolling 1d6. So bigger squads Monsters, custodies, stuff with lots of wounds. It might hurt them, might take a couple of mortal wounds off them, but it won't kill them. Single wound models falling back from a large squad of 20, 15 or so. Single wound models falling back. This is going to significantly hurt them because on 6s they suffer a mortal wound. Or if you're engaged in close combat with a tank and you've managed to smack it all the way down to 1 or 2 wounds left and your opponent decides to fall back with that tank, roll a bunch of d6s, hopefully getting those 6s and putting a mortal wound on it, and maybe you'll kill it before it has a chance to retreat from combat. Cut them down, 1 CP. That one's going to come in clutch. We're going to see that one a lot. Emergency disembarkation, also 1 CP. So 3 of the new ones. Fire Overwatch, Cut Them Down, and Emergency Disembarkation, all 1 CP. Emergency disembarkation is quite simple. Now when you disembark from a vehicle, you've got to disembark wholly within 3 inches of the hull of that vehicle. This means that you can't disembark as far from the vehicle as you could in 8th edition. Emergency disembarkation allows you to disembark wholly within 6 inches of that vehicle instead of 3. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, because you have to now disembark wholly within 3 inches, there's going to be a chunk of occasions where you can't stick your units wholly within 3 inches of the hull of a vehicle. Say it's half covered in close combat, or say it's halfway up a terrain piece, up a ruin like that, and when it gets killed, you can't drop down so you're wholly within 3. You're actually dropping down 4 or 5 inches below the vehicle. There's going to be a chunk of occasions where you want to set up your models wholly within 6 inches instead of wholly within 3 inches of that vehicle. So if you want to do that, it costs you 1 CP. However, these units are not affected by the destroyed model's explodes ability or equivalent. And instead of, for every model that disembarked, roll a dice, and it is destroyed for each roll of a 1 or 2 instead of just a 1. So you wholly disembark within 6 instead of wholly disembark within 3, and your models, you're picking them up on a 1 or 2, not suffering mortal wounds, you're picking them up, their count was destroyed on a 1 or 2 instead of just a 1. Units cannot declare a charge or perform a heroic intervention in the same turn that they disembark from the transport. That's the same as in 8th edition. In your turn, because remember these vehicles are blown up in the enemy's turn, you can't charge or heroically intervene in the enemy's turn. That's a bit gamey. In your turn, they're free to move off and do whatever you want to, but in the enemy's turn, yeah, it's a way of getting you guys out of a vehicle when paying a CP for it, and there's a 1/3 chance of them dying when they would have died anyway, when you can't get them out. So do you want to spend the CP and have the chance of surviving? Emergency disembarkation is for you. The last one, 2 CP, desperate breakout. Desperate breakout is for those moments when you have a model or a couple of models and they're surrounded and there's nowhere for them to go. They can't move in any direction without moving within engagement range of an enemy model, or they're already in engagement range of some enemy models, but you can't move them through other enemy models. You're stuck. Desperate breakout, 2 CP, you're stuck. I can't get out of there. I can't move. I can't move my tank out of the way. I can't move my 3 custodies that are stuck here because there's 12 guys surrounding them on all sides. I need to desperately break out. Well, for 2 CP, you can fall back across models as if they were not there. That's what it says. Any model in that unit that ends its fallback move after moving across models as if they weren't there, any model that ends its fallback move within engagement range is destroyed. Assuming the unit is not destroyed once it falls back, it cannot do anything else this turn because it counts as a fallback, i.e. it can't attempt to manifest a psychic power, shoot, declare a charge, be selected to fight, even if it has a rule that would allow it to do so after falling back. So if you're an Ultramarine or a Harlequin player and you decide to spend 2 CP to desperately break out and move across models as if they weren't there, and normally you would be able to act or do something, you can't. You can't shoot, you can't manifest psychic powers, you can't charge, even if there's a rule that would allow it to do so. Now, when for each model in the unit that decides to desperately break out, you roll a dice, and for each result of a 1, one model in that unit of your choice is destroyed. So you could put it on a tank, or on a walker, or on a dreadnought that's surrounded, or on a Carnifex that's surrounded, and it costs you 2 CP, and then don't roll that 1. Then it can move across the models and desperately break out. Why would you do this? Well, when you're surrounded in close combat, and the model is, your dreadnought is punching away and punching away and punching away at these Nurglings or whatever the crap it is, you don't want to punch away at it, and you know it's going to be, you know those occasions where you know that model is going to be stuck there for 2-3 turns. We had plenty of those occasions on battle reports when models were stuck there for 2-3 turns, and we just forgot about them because it was turn 4. So they're never going to get out of there by turn 7. We're just leaving them there. And we didn't even bother rolling the dice. And it was a viable game tactic now. Well, now, why would you do this? Because you can break your model out of close combat, which means those Nurglings or that annoying unit which was surrounding your dreadnought can now get shot at. And let's face it, if that's your goal, which is just to shoot at that unit and remove it, it might be a troops unit holding this thing down on an objective somewhere. Even if you roll a 1 for your dreadnought and it counts as destroyed because it tried to break out and failed, you can still shoot at the unit now because they're not in close combat with your dreadnought. So desperate breakout. Them's the new stratagems. Command reroll. Very specific now. Cut them down when stuff falls back. Do mortal wounds to them. Desperate breakout for 2 CP. We talked about emergency disembark a bit further. Fire overwatch. Counter-offensive, which is interrupt the fight phase, and insane bravery for 2 CP. Automatically pass morale, but you can only do it once per battle. Them's the new universal stratagems available whenever you play open play, narrative play, match play in Warhammer 40k 9th edition. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for listening. Happy wargaming.